Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning. Parents, what if we could give you the power to transform your family into something absolutely amazing?
A family where everyone is healthy, gets along, loves Jesus, and has great purpose in life.
Hey, let us flip your thinking to unlock the power God has given you to create your own Crazy Cool family. Welcome, and we are continuing our summer series. Suzanne and I have Macy, third daughter, and our very favorite Crazy Cool Family employee.
That's me. Favorite child, favorite employee. Okay, maybe just favorite.
Maybe just
child that is your employee.
We are continuing our summer series, Who Knows Your Kids Best? And we want that person to be you. We want you to know your kid best. And so we're talking to our kids in hopes that you will see the dynamics of the parent-to-kid relationship, the kid-to-parent relationship, even kid-to-kid and kid-to-God, so that you can see all the dynamics. And so it will inspire you to get to know your kid better and realize that all kids are different and different parenting methods and techniques and all those things are required. Right, right, guys?
Yeah.
Right,
totally.
Kids?
Right, kids.
I just love getting to, I guess maybe even introduce you guys to our kids, to get to know our kids a little bit. But I really love the value of hopefully you're picking up on how you can get to know your child through the ways that we've gotten to know our kids. And so,
well, and it's fun now that most of the Manning kids are adults, and even some of us are having kids, that we're starting to reflect on our own childhood and be like, oh, well, mom did it like this or dad did it like this, but we don't want to do it like that, you know, or we really need to pick up that method that really worked. And so it's like, as we're adults, we're starting to reflect on our childhood. And that's where kind of the whole series came from, was like, wow, there's so many parents out there who have a daughter or a son that might be like me, that God wired us similarly. So how can you learn from the way I was parented or the way my parents chose to parent to like help you? Maybe not make the same mistakes, or maybe make the good calls like my parents made to help raise me.
One of the things we say at Crazy Cool Family is that every parent should have a great relationship with every child at every age. There's never a time. And because you think, oh, that's such a high standard. But what we want you to do is when you have relationship issues, you see it not as, oh, this is the norm, but it's a red flag.
Right.
And so that you
an
can
opportunity. That's how I look at it. It's an opportunity to connect with your child. Because when things are going smooth and great, that's when we love it the most. But when things are rocky, that's when the strong connections are made.
And the strength of the relationship gets deeper when you go
exactly.
through the hard things together.
Yes. Okay, and so we want to just talk a little bit about Macy for a second. What kind of child she was. She's a full-grown adult now.
Here's Macy. When I think of Macy, I just think of emotion.
Yep.
And so when you say so I remember
when Inside Out came, we've talked about this on a different podcast, but whenever the movie Inside Out came out, I just wept. Because I was like,
wept. Maybe you should weep. Maybe the word.
Wept. I did
cry.
I did cry a lot. I still do almost every time I watch
it.
Because it just resonated. It made so much sense to me. I know I don't have a bunch of little floating blobs around in my brain, but the ability to identify all the emotions, all the feelings going on in my body at any given moment, it was definitely a huge part of my childhood.
Well, one of my earliest memories are, you're 1 year old and you're telling stories. You can't talk, but so it's like this gibberish. But even the stories you're talking are full of emotion and full of expression, and you would just say, and from the beginning, you just had a passion for life.
Yeah, I want to go back to even the beginning. I mean, because when Macy was born, she was born 3 weeks early, and she came super fast, and she was tiny. I mean, you weren't even 7 pounds. You were so tiny, and you slept all the time. And she found her thumb very early, so she was a self-soother. And of the first 3 of my kids, she's the only one that slept for any. I mean, and you still love sleep. sleep.
Still do,
right?
yeah.
You still don't suck your thumb anymore.
No,
right?
thankfully no. I moved past that.
We gave you a kitten to bribe you.
Yes.
From,
Yeah, bribe. Yeah. There were so many things we tried, and that's what worked. Got me a kitty to stop sucking my thumb.
But I just think about, so go back even, parents, to the very beginning of as you were delivering the baby, if you will, what kind of infant were they? Because I think that starts it. And so when Macy was angry as an infant, she screamed really loud, but she also learned to laugh really early. And so even as an infant, and then fast forward to your toddler, and her little hair just stuck up all over the place.
She was such a cute baby.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah,
she was just like,
we couldn't, for a year or two, could not go out to eat because you'd throw a fit somewhere.
Yeah, between 2 and 3.
Yeah, it was just so everything was emotional, know, and it was we've had different kids that do express emotion well, but that's just what defined Macy, I think. And so it was really, and the emotions were, we were out there happy, and we were out there sad, and we were out there in every way.
And for me as a mom, I learned so much from her. And moms, don't underestimate what your children have to teach you. Yeah. But I'm an emotional person too, but somewhere along the way, I learned to hide those or stuff those, and so that they would come out all of a sudden, but then they would get stuffed back again. And so with Macy, one of the things that we learned together is to have our emotions and have our feelings and to go ahead and cry. But I remember, and maybe moms, you do this too, when your child's throwing a fit, you match it. And you throw one too. Macy's throwing a fit in the grocery store, and I'm throwing one right back at her. No, you can't have that cereal, And I just remember, like Dawn said, we had a season where we didn't take her out anywhere. Not so much because
just put her in the closet.
Yeah. No, I would stay home, or I would go to Target at 10 o'clock at night. I would go and leave her at home when she was in bed. But if I were to do it over again, and parents, what I would like to tell you is, instead of avoiding it, press in, and partner with your child and walk them through that. And okay, Macy, I understand that you're upset, and the reason we're not going to get this cereal, and just to be patient. And I just was not.
Yeah, it reminds me of the base camp video in one of the courses, probably the parent to kid course, but it was like, act like the parent, not the child.
Oh, it's in the discipline course.
It's in the discipline course. That was a strategy that maybe if you had to do your parenting over again, you would you wish someone would have told you that earlier on. I don't remember it. I was too little, but that's
I have apologized to Macy though.
Oh yeah. We're friends now.
But then as you get older into grade school, that's just been a theme of your life, is the emotional stuff. And then also just, as you're growing up, you have sisters we've got 4 sisters is really who you're growing up with in those formative years. And so you have Madeline, who's a big personality. You have your older sisters were very outgoing, and you tried, and you just stayed right with them, you know?
Yeah, I think I remember on the emotional piece, I remember growing up and feeling like something was wrong because Mackenzie and Madeline would express their anger or their sadness in words. Very rarely was it in action or outward emotion. I'll never forget it. Me and Mackenzie were in a big fight, and she just wasn't talking to me. And I was so mad, and my face was all red, and I was huffing and puffing, and I was probably crying at some point. And I was like, "What's wrong with you?" And she was like, "I'm mad at you." And it was just so stoic, and I just was like, no, you're not. You're nothing right now. You're making no visible sign that you're angry. I'm angry. Let's fight, And I just remember growing up thinking wow, I'm just different. And thankfully I had Molly, who was also and is also pretty emotional, pretty big feeler. And so we would be explosive towards each other. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not that weird. Madeline and Mackenzie keep it together, but at least me and Molly have our big, knockout tantrums. But I agree. I think emotions were a big piece of my life and still are. It's just been a part of the fabric of
Well, and
how
then
God made
another
me.
theme that I think about with you growing up is that, especially as we move into the grade school and maybe middle school years, is struggling with your appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big deal that we had to work through.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah. I was looking at photos just the other night, and I was telling my mom, I was like, growing up as a little girl, I was completely normal. Had energy, was the normal size. I don't remember when exactly it switched. I just remember starting to wake up mornings, and I was like, I'm I'm bigger than all of my sisters, like weight wise, size wise. My face was like more swollen than, I don't know, it was so bizarre. And you look at pictures and there's like a chunk of time between when I was like 8, 9 or 10, somewhere in there, and like 13, 14 when I like started to hit puberty and grow up and do sports and all of that. But I just remember that wrecked my confidence. Yeah. And I would wake up every morning and I'd look in the mirror and I would just cry. And I never wanted to get dressed, and I never wanted to go to church because I just didn't want anyone to see me because I didn't like what I looked like. And that like shattered a lot of other things, like low self-esteem. If you have a kid who has low self-esteem and they're not confident in how God made them, like, it affects every other part
and just
of their
think about
life.
it, you went from this, I mean, literally just an absolutely darling looking little girl. I mean, just pictures of her are just,
I was the cutest out of everyone, hands down.
Yeah, I can't go there, but then to move into that 8, 9, 10, and it really did have an impact, and it had an impact on our family too, because we were trying to encourage you through this stage, if you will, and help you see it as a stage and not so. I mean, you talked about confidence. Suzanne, what do you think about, when you were going through it, you had to walk through that a lot because you were getting her dressed for church and you were doing all the things that were happening.
So I think that one of the things that fed into that for Macy, and maybe you have a child like this, is she's a perfectionist. Yeah. And so there's a thought process that she would run in her head that it didn't really matter what any of us said, what Don or I said or any of the siblings said. If we took her shopping and she looked absolutely darling, she was still beating herself up in her head.
I looked at the one part of me that was too big or whatever, not like Madeline or not like Kinsey or
And I just remember even when it came to like disciplining her, if there was something that she did that we weren't happy with, we couldn't come down on her hard because she was beating herself up so much. Like there was not a consequence that we could give her that was worse than what she was already giving herself. And so I think that fed into it. And I think what happened is a downward spiral happened. I think that she was about to hit puberty, and and her body was telling her to hit puberty, but she wasn't there quite yet. And so then she put on some weight, and then the next thing you know, she started spiraling down. Yeah. And then the thought processes and everything spiraled down. Yeah. And so we actually went to the chiropractor. We got some supplements. We went to a couple different doctors, and just to get it checked out for her peace of mind more than anything, to let her know that she's not in the battle alone. That we're going to partner with you and help her. And so I think it was if you look back on your childhood, it does maybe feel like that it was a dark spot, but just to know that it's how God wired you. It's who you are. It's how you're made.
But I think as we look at that season too, that
children.
There is one of the things that I remember you have said to us is that during that time, we did encourage you, even though it may have fallen on deaf ears sometimes, but eventually that you remember looking back on that with encouragement, that even like, Molly, as your older sister, would be like, trying on those those other more and more outfits and how it worked. And so one of the things I want to tell parents is if you're in that season, it may not be working at the time, but it worked later. Express that a little bit to the parents that are listening.
Yeah, I think
like what to do.
Like family culture is so important. I don't remember who I was telling this to, but I don't ever remember being bullied or made fun of by any of my siblings for being overweight or having any sort of, like, they knew, and I don't really understand how. Maybe I communicated it or maybe y'all communicated it, but like they never, like that was just not allowed in our family. Like we were not allowed to tear each other down. And so that's a big deal because like I look back on that. I think you're right, Mom. Like I look back on that as like a harder season in my life and a really discouraging season, a dark spot, but not because of my family. Like if anything, my family made it less dark and helped me walk through it and helped me see the other side. That I think maybe that season was even shorter because of my family and the way we like fought to find healing, or we fought to be encouraging, or Molly fought to help me grow in my self-confidence. Like I just felt like overall our culture was to lift up and not to tear down. And I think that helped a lot.
And so we've described you so far as emotional. We've described you so far as having some issues in that 8 to 13 range. They're a very cute little kid. You said the cutest. But, so what else? How else would you describe yourself, personality? And Suzanne, jump in too. I mean, how would how would we describe Macy? Like one of the things I would say, super smart, just
intelligent.
Yeah, so intelligent and
so talented. Like anything she touches turns to gold. Like Mackenzie took up playing the violin, and so Macy decided that she wanted to play it too. And then Macy was like radically better. I think Mackenzie quit because she's like, yeah, why bother?
Mackenzie worked a lot harder than I did. Like I remember her practicing a lot more, and me getting what I wanted to get out of it in 30 minutes.
Yeah,
because one of those
and
things
all music
is music. I mean, you've loved music, and that's been an expression for really all your life. You've really loved listening to music, and then eventually became a worship leader. And worship became a big part of your life.
But even sports, like I think like you played basketball very well. You played. You were one of the best ones on the team. You played volleyball very well. You played softball and were like the star softball player. Never played it before in your life. The year that you played it, you were like this. And they were having you switch positions. Remember all the different ways you were batting, and you would do it anyway. Macy, do it this way, this time, this way, this time. She's like, okay. Anyway, and so I just think that, super, super talented.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned about myself over the last several years was I really am a deep person. Like I have a deep well, but I'm not the most sharing or vulnerable first person. I will share a little bit, but I'm a person of intimacy. Like I really like to feel really close and connected to you. I like relationships. I like depth. I like community. And I think a lot of
you like physical touch.
I do. Yeah, love hugs.
No, we missed that one. But yes, as a little kid, she was the one that would crawl up in my lap. She's like, Mom, you've got another baby in your belly. I just want to sit in your lap.
That's my spot. Yeah, I think, just connection and intimacy are two words that I feel like have really marked my life. And I think the church being involved in the local church, being committed to the local church has really fostered that of people make me better. Like I wasn't made to do my life alone. I'm actually really unhealthy when I'm in my head all by myself. I think that's one of the reasons why God put me in the family I'm in, because I thought I was an outward extrovert, do it all by myself or do it with people my whole life. And then I get to college and I'm like, wait, I love being alone. I just never had the chance to be. And I swung to the total other end of the spectrum where I was actually pretty unhealthy and I spent way too much time alone. And now I've kind of found my better middle balance.
Well, you're a unique combination because you are an external processor, but you're an introvert.
Yeah. So I need people to listen. I need avenues of help me get this wave of thoughts out. But then I'm exhausted. And I'm like, but now I need to go walk by myself or sleep.
To be in a room full of people is exhausting.
Yeah.
But then, just to make things even more fun is that while you are a perfectionist, like the 1 on the Enneagram, but when you're your healthiest, you're the 7, which is the happy-go-lucky fun.
Make fun.
And so when Macy comes to town, she's just like, okay, let's go swimming. Let's go bowling. Let's go on the boat. Let's go this. Let's do that. All the things, all the fun.
Like an entertainer.
Yeah, the entertainer, exactly. But the introvert and then anyway, it's just a fun.
Yeah, lots of dynamics. And I think going back to what I said, the connection piece, I go to bed at night feeling so accomplished if I've been productive, done things, accomplished something, but then really just had fun with people along the way. If I got to be around people, use my gifts, use my talents, all of that, I go to bed feeling wow, that was a great day.
Well, and that kind of gives us a picture of who you are. And then it makes me think about during your growing up years, this has been so fun with each child, just going back down the memory lane and seeing, but so as we parented you and as you were responding to our parenting, what would you say that worked? So we're kind of painting a picture, high achiever, things come easy, emotional, musically oriented, did well in school, child, but went through some issues. Yeah. So, and how did we parent? What worked?
So are you saying, what did we do right and what did we do wrong?
What did we do right and what did we do wrong?
Okay, yeah. Simplify. What did we do right?
Parenting.
Brag on us, and what did we throw us under the bus?
Yeah.
Oof. I think what we talked about with family culture, I'm trying to remember and go back, but like I don't remember us verbalizing, hey, this is our family culture, this is what we do. It was just kind of y'all led by example. And I remember us talking about the family name, but I don't fully remember how we did all these things.
When you say the family name, you mean, hey, you're a Manning.
Yes.
Just for explanation purposes.
Yeah.
People.
Family name.
Hey, you're a Manning. This is what Mannings do. This is what Mannings don't.
Yeah, it was identity and character kind of being infused in us through our banner of our family name. So, hey, Mannings don't lie. Mm-hmm. Hey, Mannings don't hit their siblings. Hey, Mannings, try in school to do their best. We understand if you don't do perfect, but try your best. Like those were things that were in me growing up. And I think that if you're going to do one thing as a parent, like get your family name, get some identity and character into your kids, because I didn't even know that was happening to me. And then I just like woke up one day and I was like, wow, I'm like integrous. How did that happen? Like I deeply care if I lie or not, and I just think that was a really big win that I didn't even really realize was happening. It just like kind of dripped along the way. And something else was, I remember very specific points in my life, early memories, but also middle school, high school, and even into college, where you guys pulled me aside and just encouraged me. Like I remember there was a time when Dad and I were in the car and he just said he was really proud of me as a daughter. And that marked me as a kid and as a woman and as a daughter. And then so many times where Mom and I would be sitting in the car, sitting in the bathroom, sitting at the foot of her bed, and she would just say, like, Macy, you're amazing. Like, I love you just the way you are. Like, there's no one in the world like you. God made you so special. Yeah, you're not perfect. No one's perfect. No one's asking you to be perfect. Jesus was perfect, so you didn't have to be. But I think you're amazing. And even just that whole dynamic of going from being a kid to being a friend of your parents, like, I genuinely feel like you guys like hanging out with me and you like being around me. So the encouragement and just the dripping.
I get to go bowling when you come.
It's true. We did do that.
One of the things that I always said to my kids, or one of them, it's like, I wish you could see yourself like I see you.
Yeah.
I wish you could see yourself from my eyes. I wish you could see how amazing you are.
Yeah. And which means that parents, you got to see your kid that way. You know, so often we see our kids, and it's tough sometimes we see them as what they're not doing versus seeing what they are doing and who they are, seeing them as who they're not versus who they are. And once we see them as who they are, then we can tell them who they are. Yeah. Because if you're a hypocrite about it, that comes out too.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and words are so powerful. Like hearing you guys rehash my baby days is so fun because you genuinely thought my baby days were fun, but I wasn't a perfect baby. But you chose to remember the spiky hair and the fun little toddler and the crazy stories. You could have gone on this whole rant and been like, oh, Macy was the worst. I never got to go out to eat because she just never, like, it's totally the power of your words. And I think that sometimes parents don't realize the power of words that they have over their kids.
Well, and there were some frustrating times. I mean, like in high school, that whole introvert fun person thing, I would try to go into your room.
So hit or miss.
Yes. It was, and so, but I mean, mostly I missed a lot.
I'm going to externally process with you because I'm an external processor.
Yeah. And so
Macy's like, no.
I would go, I mean, so often, she would, because she spent a lot of time alone in your room in high school. And you might go into why that is, but I mean, it was, I would go in there, hey, I'm going to be this great parent. I'm going to go connect with my daughter who's 16, 17 and go in there. And I feel like I was the biggest inconvenience to you were, right?
Yeah. At that time in my life, you really were
feeling that.
And what you were picking up was 100% correct in that moment of your life.
And it was I was disappointed as a parent. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And, but so it wasn't all, perfect in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think high school was really where I felt connected to Mom and like she knew me, but I didn't feel like Dad and I had any commonalities. Like I wasn't playing sports anymore. I wasn't like really doing anything that him and I had commonalities. And so every time, I would say pretty much every time he would come up to my room, he would come up when I was talking to friends, or I was trying to get homework done, or I was in between. Like I'd gotten home from school and I was about to go to church, or I'd gotten home from something and I was about to leave. So I was rushing around doing something, and he would come in so happy and so cheerful. And I usually wasn't. Like I was a teenage girl and I was probably moody about something. And so he'd be like, "Hey, Macy, how was your day?" And I was like, "Dad, really not right now." And I would like try to be nice about it, but I just got so fed up. I'd be so blunt and honest, and he'd walk like with little puppy with his like tail between his legs. He'd be like, "Okay, well, have a good night."
Okay, bye.
It was so sad, and I'd feel so bad, but like literally the thoughts that, I don't know if we've ever talked about this extensively, but the thoughts that would go through my head were, he wants to talk to me for him, not for me. And that was a lot of our relationship in that season. When it was on his terms, it was on his time. It was very rare that like he would talk about me. It was a lot about him talking about him. And it was like hard for me to like engage with that when I was so self-absorbed, honestly. And so I remember that change senior year. I remember there were multiple times that we went to breakfast together. And it was so helpful for me because I was like, okay, I have this time set aside for my dad. He's asking me about me. I'm asking him about him. We're like actually connecting. But the flyby things just were not working. It was not on my terms, which I don't think I had a right for it to be on my terms. But I felt like I did at that point.
Well, and you're 16. I mean, it's like, I think that there's so many lessons to learn from that is, making it about them. And also just the things that sometimes it works, parents, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think one of the things that we've found over the course of time is the consistency of pursuit, the consistency of parenting, that's what really works over time. It's not
it's the intentional pursuit. I mean, if it's going after her, he just kept going there. So no matter how you felt about him, you knew he was there for you.
Yeah.
No matter
and when I
what.
needed him.
And when you needed him, he was there.
Yeah.
He was available. And so a lot of the times I think we're the ones that give the kids the stiff shoulder. We're the ones that we maybe don't pursue them because they've hurt our feelings, because we've pursued them and they have rejected us, if you will.
It was from, you were talking about from your perspective. I mean, from my perspective, it was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
mean.
It was like, okay, let's go in here and get punched. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Macy. Oh, bam. Okay, here we go. And let's go in there again, and knowing you're going to get hit most of the times.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to do as a parent.
But remember, it's not about you. I mean, and that's what it's just as the parent. It's about the connection, and it's about the relationship, and it's about the child. And they've got their emotions full. I mean, like it's the teenage years. If you've got a teenager, you've already probably started experiencing it. They're trying to figure life out, and they don't know who to involve in that and who not to, and when to do that and when not to. And so as parents, if we give them space and we're there for them, then they're going to come out on the other end of it with a great relationship with you.
And just continue to be encouraging. I think in all the things
everybody needs to hear that.
Yeah, I didn't feel necessarily connected to my dad with all the things I was doing, but I knew in my head that he supported me.
And I also feel like, for dads with girls especially, I mean, I think it happens with boys too, but it's almost like the mom and the daughter, they have this daily relationship. But it's like a dad speaks life. I forgot I wish I could remember the statement, but it's like the dad gives identity, the mom gives connection, but the dad gives identity. I'm not saying exactly right, because like, for example, one of the things that, as you were growing up, I kept saying, Macy, I think you're a worship leader. I really do. I think worship is, and you were like, maybe, whatever. But then kind of tell the story of what happened before your junior year, between your sophomore and junior year, when you were a softball, volleyball player, but starting to learn to hear God's voice. And then what happened then?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, like we can talk about this later too, but I have always connected with God through worship. And so that was my discovery process with God, was through worship songs, music, like we talked about. And I like loved singing, but I didn't have that self-esteem, that confidence. And so as I got into middle school, I got scooped up by a mentor who started like speaking that identity into me of saying, hey, you're a worshiper, you're a worship leader. And in 6th grade, I actually started leading in kids ministry with worship. So I had been set on this track of like, hey, you're a worshiper. But in 6th grade, I didn't have any self-confidence. And so my parents came along and were speaking that identity too. And I think it just took time. But eventually it was that the summer between my sophomore and junior year, we had a sermon series, and I felt like the Holy Spirit was speaking to me saying, like, create margin in your life. And so I created what that looked like for me was quitting sports, quitting some school activities, and making space for worship. And I remember bringing that to my parents and being like, hey, can I do this? Like, Dad, you really love that I play softball, you know? And like,
and I did.
Yeah. And I don't really think I want to do that anymore. And I remember the response was not condemnation. It was not like even critical. It was like, no, you're a worshiper. Like, we've known this about you for a long time. If that's the way you want to go, then go. And so there was so much affirmation.
Well, and then one of the things that happened there is we got you voice lessons. Mm-hmm. And remember, so that's where as a dad, you know, so I jumped into this. So I was like, hey, here's my, she won't talk to me, but I can help here, you know. And so
guitar lessons.
Yeah, we wound up investing in the resources to help. And over the course of that next year, dramatically changed your voice. Yeah. And you learned to play the guitar, maybe piano too. I can't remember, but I mean, and I remember at the end of the year, and this is just, you know, that we went to go see you leading worship for the youth. And I hadn't really seen the impact of all that. Mm-hmm. And just watching you lead worship, and it was a transformative versus what we've seen in September of that year or whatever. Yeah. And it was like, wow, okay, now it's turning into and that was your junior year. You still wouldn't talk to me, but it was, but you could see the winds. And so, you know, winds, my point to that is that as you go throughout, you know, this, and really Suzanne's more emotional. As she said, I'm much more the Mackenzie and Madeline, you know, I'm going to talk out my feelings. And so, but you look for how you can get wins with that kid that's different. Yeah. And that was one of the ways that happened for me and for you too.
Well, and I think one of the things Mom said is really good too. Like, it's not about, and this is hard to say because I'm not a parent, so I haven't experienced this yet, but like, as a parent, it's not about what you get. Like, it's not about if you feel loved from your child. It's not about if you feel affirmed by your child. Like, that'll come as they get older and they become more aware. Like, I hope I'm an encouraging person to my parents now. But when I was 16, I didn't give a single darn if I was encouraging to you guys or not. Like, that's not the point of raising kids, is to, like, for them to fill your cup. The point is for you to pour into them. So I think that's something that y'all did really well, is that you saw me and you loved me right where I was at, but you didn't expect me to like satisfy you. You knew that's not how it was supposed to work.
And so often, parents, that means that's why we talk about a Crazy Cool Family, that pursue God's at the top of the house. Yeah. Because if that's you don't have, that's because otherwise, I mean, it's so hard not to, it really does hurt. And you got to have, I always tell parents, you got to have a place to take those hurts. The hurts are going to come in parenting.
From your kids.
But yeah, I mean, I can go through seasons of rejection with every one of my children. And God's got to be the one that, otherwise it does hurt because you love them so much. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your relationship with God. So you talked about how your junior year, you're hearing from God. I mean, think back to when did your relationship with God start, and when did you start to, tap into that a little bit?
Yeah. So first I would just say that prayer is the most powerful tool that a parent can have. And I know that I had been prayed for by my parents and by people around me that raised me. And so I believe that my life was covered with prayer. And so I think that the Holy Spirit had access and was moving really early on in my life. And so some of my first memories were being in church and worshiping and hearing about the character of God and the nature of God, learning Bible stories at night with my parents or in Awanas. Like, those are some of my strongest and first memories. So my whole life I'd known about Jesus. And recently I went through a discipleship school, and they had us go back to our day of salvation in our memory and like relive it. And the Holy Spirit took me back to when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And it was some Sunday morning, and we passed out cards that said, do you want to follow Jesus? And you check the box, yes or no, invite him into your heart. So classic Baptist church. So cute. And I remember now, because I went back through the memory with the Holy Spirit, I remember really strongly like weeping. And I remember my small group leader, her name was Tracy, she held me the rest of service because I was weeping. And I couldn't express why, but now I know I was like feeling the presence of God, and he was like coming into my life. So I believe that's when I first started like following God. I think from that point until about high school, freshman, sophomore year, it was a lot of like learning about God, trying to figure out who he was, gaining experiences, went on some mission trips.
But also during that time, you're also going through your self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
And so what did that do to your relationship with God as well?
Yeah, I don't remember it directly impacting it. I don't remember, I mean, maybe y'all do, but I don't remember being mad at God. Like, to me, it wasn't a cause and effect. Like, because I follow God, I'm having these issues. It was more like, I'm a bad Christian because I don't have, like, confidence. And I should love how God made me, and I don't. So it was like, I always knew God was there, but I didn't think he could fix it, and I didn't think that he was the reason. It was just kind of like, this is the cards I was dealt, and why can I not get over myself? Why can I not be happier? But as I got older and I like learned to hear God's voice, I realized a lot of it is receiving identity from God. That's what gives you your confidence. It's not about how you look. It's not really even about how you feel on any given day. It's about who God says you are. And when I started to learn those skills, I was able to process through, not perfectly, but I was able to process through the self-esteem and the insecurities a lot better. And I think that's what kind of, that and like worship and encountering God through powerful worship was like ways that I really started to grow in my relationship with God.
And then your mom taught you how to hear the Lord's voice.
Yeah, that happened somewhere along middle school too. I was having a lot of chaos in my head, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and she just kind of helped me sort it out by saying, hey, there's only so many voices going on in your head at one time. It's your voice, it's the enemy's voice, or it's God's voice. And I just remember like instant clarity happened in my brain. She gave me some examples, and I remember from that day forward, I was able to sort through, oh, that doesn't sound like God. Or if I didn't know, I'd ask her. Or I'd ask someone. I'd ask Madeline, like, does this sound like God? And so I definitely learned how to hear God's voice from a young age. And I'm still learning what it sounds like, especially through like
Same
big life decisions. It wasn't like a one and done, but it set my life on the trajectory to like hear God and know God and like want to experience God from a pretty early age.
And so as you look back over, what is it that we as parents could have done, or what do you suggest that parents out there do, or what are you going to do as a parent someday to, draw your kids to the Lord, point them to the Lord?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot. I mean, we sound all peachy and rosy, but we didn't pray with our kids every night before they went to bed. We didn't have family devotionals every, morning. Don tried, bless his heart.
Didn't work well.
It didn't work.
He wanted us to get up at 6. I'm like, are you insane? I nursed a baby all night long. Everybody's asleep at 6.
No, thank you.
But anyway, I just know that there's lots of things that lots of families are doing out there. I love that. If you're doing something with your family that's working, please share it with us, and we'll share it with other families on our social media. But what's something that you think you might do, just even through learning from the church that you're a part of, or babysitting families that they've done? What's something?
I think something our family did really well was we didn't really like listen to anything but worship music. Like I growing up in the car specifically, shout out 94.9, I think they're still going, like that's all we really listened to. And same with what we watched. Like we didn't, not our whole lives. Like by the time I got into middle school and high school, we'd let some of the world in. But I remember, and I will do this with my kids, I will be pretty strict on what they listen to and what they watch. And the reason I believe, now that I've gone through college and I've done human development education, is their brains literally don't have the developmental skills to process what they're seeing and what they're hearing. So they're taking it in as absolute truth. And I want my kids to take in the truth as absolute truth. And so that's something that I think we did really well. And something that I think parents could do, or that I want to do, is I think emotions and talking about emotions and feelings are really important. I recently saw an Instagram post that was like a way to talk with your kids through emotions, and I'd never seen that before. Mm-hmm. Like, don't minimize it. Don't over explain it. Don't lecture. They had a lot of good points, but I think that's something that like we didn't do that much, is like give kids words for how they're feeling, or teach them to have words to how they're feeling, and then give them the tools to work through it. I think that's something that all of us could have benefited from learning earlier on, is like, hey, are you feeling angry? Okay, this is what anger feels like in your body. Yeah. Okay, why are you feeling angry? Yeah, and if they're little, they don't have the words to express it. And so you have to help them. You have to comfort. You have to walk them through it. But eventually they need to learn the words, and that's going to benefit them. I mean, in my marriage right now, Jared and I are processing that. Like, what do you do when you don't have the words to express your emotions? It's not okay to just not process it. Mm-hmm. It's not okay to just sit in it and affect everyone around you. We have to learn how to identify it and move through it. So the earlier I can teach my kids that, the earlier parents can teach their kids, especially if you have a highly emotional child like me. I'm like, please educate and equip your emotional little boys and girls to talk about it, to process it. Get them a journal. As soon as they start learning their letters and words, have them start writing, whatever you can do. Because it's not fun.
Watch Inside Out often.
Yeah, use that as an education tool. It's just not fun to have all these emotions swirling around inside of you and feel like there's no way to work on it, when there's so many ways to work on it.
That's good.
Those are a couple of things I would say. Worship music and educate your kids on
what
their
would
emotions.
you say in terms of your relationship with God and or our relationship with you, that some things we just did that, besides me coming into your room in high school, that didn't work? I mean, that you felt like that you should that you would want parents to know about from that standpoint.
Lecturing doesn't work. Sorry if you think it does.
And why?
It's ineffective. Like, kids, especially, like, so many memories of driving home in the car at night after something and just being lectured the whole way home. You don't absorb it. You don't hear it. Like, it just sounds like words. Like, you don't get out of the car being like, wow, I have 3 takeaways of how I should improve my life. Like, it just doesn't work that way. I don't know why, but
I'm going to radically change my life,
like,
because
I'm
of that lecture all the way
inspired to
home.
go and do everything else better. Like, I don't know. I think asking questions is better. Self-discovery is better. Giving the kid the space to process through whatever they have, or not talk about it. I think one of the best things I've learned recently is, if you don't have the words for it right now, let's talk about a time when we could talk about it. So right now in the car, this feels too hard. Okay, well, what about tomorrow morning when I take you to school? Can we talk about it then? And like giving them the space and the choice, but not shoving it under the rug. So lecturing, I would say, doesn't work. Something else that I've processed now that I'm older is that, and as Jared and I are deciding how many kids we want to have one day and our family size, is I wouldn't say I was quality time growing up. Like, there were other siblings that's how they felt loved, but you still need to spend some time with your kids to like show them that you love them.
I'll just hug that one. That's all she needs.
Yeah. Like, here, give her a new doll. She's good for 3 months. Like, it doesn't actually work like that. So I think that was really hard growing up, that like my parents were spread pretty thin. And especially with my mom having babies, I didn't grow up feeling like mom and I were always hanging out. But we were also homeschooled, so I did feel like I saw her a lot. But I think intentional time was something that we lacked. And even now, like, we've been talking about that since we're adult kids. My parents are even more spread thin. Like, they have so many things they're trying to do, weddings and graduations and babies being born. And it's like, wow, 7 kids is like 7 whole lives, 7 whole friendships. And you add spouses to that. It's like,
and grandkids now.
Yeah. There's no way that you're going to have enough time. So I think, I totally experienced that as a little kid. Maybe even not feeling like I could approach my parents with things sometimes because my mom was literally nursing, or my dad was literally taking 4 kids to 4 different basketball practices or whatever. So just being mindful of that as a parent too, that your kids see and know they may not have like a log in their room of like the last time dad intentionally talked to me was 4 days ago and 6 hours, but like they feel it, they know. And then don't be surprised if they act out or if they hide something or if they're going through something and they don't share it with you because there's not that like intentional connection that they actually really need.
Yeah, we say all the time that if one of those relationship lines are broken, if you apply an intentional time to it, then it will will strengthen greatly.
Because I mean, it makes sense because all the other things kind of come into play. If mom decides to take me out on a date, she's probably gonna buy me like a coffee or some sort of meal and maybe like a fun shirt. Like that would make me feel so loved. So she's doing that, like buying me things. Or if she's hanging out with me, we're driving in the car, I'm probably going to share something and she's going to encourage me. Okay, well, that's words of encouragement. You know, like we're together. And so that's proximity. That could even be enough physical touch. Maybe she gives me a hug at some point. I would love that.
Maybe I patted her.
Yeah. Just like a little touch. Like, so those other ways to love are going to come out when you choose to put that intentional time in, and it works.
Well, and so as we kind of start to land the plane a little bit, let's wrap up and transition. It's a good transition to your relationship with your siblings, because, you know, with a large family, sometimes the sibling relationships and the kid-to-kid relationships start to not make up for the parent relationship, but they help supplement that.
Yeah.
What is and has been your relationships with your siblings?
Yeah, I would say my siblings are my best friends. Specifically, like Molly, Madeline, Kinsey they've just always been there. They'll always be there. They're the ones I'm going to raise my kids with. They're the ones I'm going to be at weddings with, like have been at weddings with. They're my ride or die, as the kids say these days. And I'm so grateful that was the culture we were raised up in. We were not always great siblings. There was whole seasons where Molly was babysitting us and I was her worst nightmare. And I literally made it my goal to make her hate babysitting so much that she would beg mom and dad to pay for someone to come. And so we didn't have the best.
Because she was controlling?
She was the worst. Yes. She was just...
But then when we got a babysitter, you didn't like that one either.
Oh, no. There was no win. It wasn't really about her. It was about missing mom and dad. But as I got older, it was a lot more about like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You bossy woman.
Yeah.
Like, and she knew that. She totally, anyways, different podcast. We can talk about that dynamic. But we're great now and we love each other. And so I think that the dynamic between each sibling is really important. And me and Madeline, I struggled with a lot of comparison to Madeline because she was literally the opposite of me in every way, but we looked the exact same.
And you're only 18 months apart.
Yeah, we're 18 months apart.
And
So me and Molly were more
older.
years.
Yeah.
There was a bigger gap, but me and Madeline she was just 18 months older. Compared myself to her, got confused by people that I was her. Like people wanted me to be her. Like, oh, Macy's here, not Madeline. You know, like there was all kinds of comparison that was rooted in that relationship, which thankfully God like helped me break off and I don't live in that anymore. And so our relationship is really close. Kinsey and I have always been best friends. And then I feel like me specifically have had just the sweetest opportunity to be close to each of my brothers. I lived at home when they lived at home. I drove them to school a lot. I lived at home during college summers, so I hung out with Maddox and Kate a lot. Jared and I recently lived at home as we were moving between states. So we lived with Maddox and Kate this whole last summer. And so there's like a friendship that I feel like we have. And I was the sister with them that was like really rough. Like I always played games with them on the trampoline, or I'd wrestle with them in the pool. I'd almost drown them, you know, or like I was just always after them. I had so much like energy. I had to get it out, and they were like my targets. And now they like beat me up. Every single time.
They didn't. But for a long time, we would say, Macy, you can't beat your brother up.
Yes.
It's not good for his masculinity. Yeah, but I can, Mom. No, I know you can, Macy.
Like, I can take all three.
But you shouldn't.
And I don't know when that day is going to change. And that day has changed.
It did.
Like we had,
the exact moment.
Yeah, we know the exact moment.
Right.
We don't need to talk about that day because it was humiliating. But yeah, so I feel like all of my siblings, what I love about my siblings and the like kid to kid dynamic, and parents, I want to encourage you with this too, is like help your kids find that thing that they love about their other siblings. Like I love that Michael is so into knowledge and learning, but he's also sporty and active and he likes to be outside. We connect on those two things. And like I love Maddox. Like I can't talk about him for too long without crying because he's my male mini me. In so many ways we were made alike by God, and I have connected with him and had amazing conversations over these last couple months with him that have challenged me and stirred me. And I love Kate. Jared and I went and worked out with him the other day, and
they want to adopt him.
We do. We like asked my parents to like put us as his legal guardians in their will. Because we love him. He's just so funny, and he's so black and white, straight to the point and blunt and relevant. He teaches me things all the time. And so I love all of my siblings, but I haven't always had great relationships with them. And I think that's the point. Like, as a parent, don't freak out if your kids are not BFFs from day one, but also help them invest in each other and find ways to love each other, because your kids were made, and it is possible for your kids to be best friends.
Yeah, this has been super fun, and that's a great way to kind of end this. I want you to see, Macy, for example, she struggled, what did you say, 8 to 13 but yet just finished a half marathon. So, I mean, woohoo. Yeah, and is, just overcame all that. Parenting's a long-term game. Yeah. And there are going to be stages, ups and downs, and I hope you see that. And as we've seen as you're seeing in our kids, and we'll see in all our kids, there's all kinds of stages we go through. There's all kinds of relationship stages and developmental stages and all the things we go, but we're in it for the long term. Consistency works. What did you say, Suzanne? Just the intentionality of it works as over time as you, understanding that, like you said, Macy, their approval of you is not your identity. That God is your identity through it all. And so I think we see that's happened, and just tying them in with the siblings and all that. So any final words, guys, as we end this?
I was just going to say that just to remember to look at parenting as a journey, and that relationship with your children is a journey, and all journeys have got their high points and their low points and their hard places and their easy places, and to just press into each of those places, because with that creates opportunity to know, love, understand them as a person, and just to see them as a gift. I mean, and that's what I did with all of my kids, is they're a gift that God has given me, that he's given to bless us completely and totally. And when we look at it like that, then it really removes all those expectations and those perspectives, and even getting your feelings hurt, all of those things. If you remove that and, okay, God, what do you want with this gift? How do I steward this gift? How do I love this gift well? And so if you just submit to the Lord, our church is saying right now, Holy Spirit, we invite you in, or Holy Spirit, come, and so I just encourage you to do that, with each and every one of your children, as we've been doing this summer, but to share with you as you go on.
Macy, any final thoughts for our parents?
Love your emotional kids and train them up. The verse of
love the crybabies.
The verse of train them up in the way they should go, and when they're old, they'll not depart from it. Start now. If you have a 1-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 16-year-old, start educating them now on identify your emotions. Let's talk about it. Let's process it. This is a safe place. All of that, because people have emotions, and our world is getting wrecked because we don't know how to process them, or we don't think they're valid, or we think we are our emotions and that's our truth. There's so many messed up things about it. So go get resources, go figure out how to love your emotional child. And then I would say just be a place for them to listen. If they don't have you as a safe place, reset that this summer. Hey, I'd love to be a safe place for you. What would that look like? Ask questions, be open, and get to know your emotional little feeler. Yeah. Little baby boy, baby girl. It's worth it.
I hope I remember to do this on every podcast. I'm trying to, but just to end it with this, that we love you, and we're proud of you. We believe in you. We love that emotional little girl that's now an emotional, that's now an emotional adult. Yeah. And we love the person you've become. And we're super proud of you. And so, and we're excited about your journey going forward. So,
and your own fuzzy little kids.
That's right.
Into the family someday. Yeah. Emotional, fuzzy-headed kids.
So finishing up with Macy. And as always, parents, go be crazy. crazycoolfamily.com.